I'll start by talking about what everybody knows. Everybody knows that today, whatever the topic, we can start by saying we are in an unprecedented situation, a new, unknown situation, everything is new. We can talk about the effect of human activities on the climate. We can talk about the pollution of the ocean by plastic. We can talk about the relationship between human beings and viruses. Whatever the topic, we are in absolutely new situation, unprecedented situation. What to do in such situation? In this case, first, we have to analyze the situation. And after that, we have to phrase appropriate questions. And important not to be fast, not to rush, to provide possible theories, answers, ideas, anticipation. We are in the age of questions. That's exactly, to illustrate what I'm saying, I can show you just the cover of a book I have published in 2019. You don't need to read it, just look at the cover. Everything is on the cover. You can see a big question mark in red. So what we'll do today together, we will phrase question in relation to the current situation regarding human birth. And in fact, we'll raise a simple question for how long can humanity survive socialized birth? To understand the current crisis, we have to refer to the previous crisis, which took place about roughly 10,000 years ago, the end of the Paleolithic age, the beginning of the Neolithic age, is the time when our ancestors started to dominate nature. We always mention, in the framework of domination of nature, we always mention the domestication of plants, agriculture, domestication of animals, animal husbandry. We forget to mention that at the same time, there was to a certain extent also the domination of human beings, the socialization of some physical processes, the organization, a new way of physiological processes. It was a way to dominate nature, to organize human life, and a good example of the fact that at that time there was a domestication to a certain extent of human beings. A good example is to talk about childbirth. Important to recall that until that crisis, the Neolithic Revolution, we have sufficient amount of data. I don't have time to give details, but we can say until that time, women used to isolate themselves to give birth. And then, when plants, animals, and human beings were domesticated, childbirth became socialized. What does it mean? It means transmission from generation to generation of perinatal beliefs, rituals, complex, differences according to the places in the world, culture, and so on, and the presence of one or several human beings in the place of birth. It was completely new at that time. Recently, 10,000 years ago, it's recent in the history of mankind. Then the solution of childbirth became more and more complex, developed, and recently there has been the ultimate phase of the solution of childbirth, something I can talk about because I started to be involved in childbirth in 1953 as an extern, that means medical student with minor responsibilities in a Paris hospital. In 1953, I was already involved in childbirth, so I'm aware of the ultimate phases of the solution of childbirth, which are the masculinization until that time, birth in general was women's business. When women were all of them giving birth at home, it was women's business. Father is at the pub or bistro, the father was boiling water, but it was women's business. And not only it was women's business because there were only women there, but also what happened, birth was more and more medicalized. When I was externed in a hospital in 1953, I didn't dare to enter a room where there was a woman in labor. I could only appear when baby was coming, because my job at that time, my role at that time, it was to learn to use the forceps. Forceps was a symbol of obstetric. Now we don't need it, but at that time it was a symbol of obstetric. So childbirth became more and more socialized, different ways, ultimate phase, masculinization, medicalization. We cannot summarize 10,000 years of history until that time, but we can say that today we have reached this ultimate phase of social childbirth, and we can say also that we have reached a time when at a global level, most women don't give birth by themselves, but rely on the medical institution. So this is an absolutely unprecedented situation. And because today the birth period is considered a critical period in the development of human beings, we have to raise serious questions. So our role this morning is to raise questions about the possible effect of childbirth, modern birth, effect of modern birth on the future and even on the survival of mankind. We raise questions about the survival of mankind. So for that, we'll just mention example of unprecedented situation. First example is to recall that until recently, in spite of years of socialization, most women, to give birth to their baby, were obliged to release what we might call a cocktail of hormones of love. Of course, an important component of this cocktail is oxytocin, and thanks to Kirsten, we know a lot about oxytocin, but in fact, it's a cocktail. Hormones of prolactin has behavioral effects, endorphin, and so to give birth, women had to release a cocktail of hormones of love. It was like that, whatever. Today, as you know, it's completely different. At a global level, today, we are at a time when first, we don't understand the birth process, we have no interest in birth physiology, but furthermore, today we have our disposal cheap pharmacological assistance. Synthetic oxytocin is cheap, widely used all over the world, including in developing countries. And we have at our disposal safe, easy cesarean section. So what we can say is absolutely new in the history of mankind, and that's why we have to raise questions. Today, hormones of love are redundant, are not useful. We don't need them in the perinatal period. That's a question. How long can humanity survive if hormones of love are not used during the perinatal period? As I told you, I just ask a question. I don't rush to predict. I don't rush to give opinions. I just raise a question. How useful are hormones of love when in this particular period when we consider the future of our species? I don't do anything else than raising questions. I'll give another example of an unprecedented situation. It is that until recently, we can say that, as a general rule, women were giving birth among a great diversity of familiar and therefore friendly microbes. They were giving birth where the place where they were living. It was like that. An important point when we talk about human beings is to recall that the human placenta is special. I don't have time to talk about the hemochorial structure of the placenta, but what is special about human beings? It is that the maternal antibodies, the maternal IgG, can easily cross the placenta. Without giving details, we can say, to summarize, to simplify, that when a human being is born, this newborn baby has the same, roughly the same IgG, the same antibodies as the mother. It's like that among humans. The priority are not the same at birth than among other species. So what does it mean? That until recently, when the baby is born, the baby was in a familiar place, and the baby's body was colonized immediately after birth by a great diversity of familiar and therefore friendly microbes. Baby had the same antibodies as the mother. They were starting, not anything. They were starting to educate, to program the human system. It was like that until recently. And you know a well-known rule in bacteriology that it's called the race for the surface. It means that when a place is germ-free, the first microbes that occupy the territory become the rulers of the territory. Something to remember, to recall. Today, the first microbes that are occupying the territory are not the same as they have been until recently. There is no need for long development to claim that while until now women were giving birth among a great diversity of familiar and friendly microbes, today it's the opposite. No need to say more. Women don't give birth at home, they give birth elsewhere. Impossible elsewhere to reproduce the bacteriological environment you have at home. It means the human system of human beings from now on is not programmed, is not educated in the same way as until recently. Education of the human system is serious. It's talking about how health is organized. And once more, questions. We'll just raise questions. We need to, if we realize the importance of this question, it means that today we need new epidemiological studies, particular studies about the dysregulation of the human system in relation to the place of birth. Dysregulation of the human system is a huge topic, it's health in general, but we think in particular of allergic diseases, autoimmune diseases, and viral diseases. Viral diseases, to a certain extent, effect of dysregulation of the human system. So this is what we need suddenly, a new generation of epidemiological studies. Until now, there is almost no study that way, just some studies with allergic diseases in relation to the way babies are born. But in these studies, they compare hospital birth with hospital birth. So that's what we need. We need today to compare home birth and birth elsewhere. We need a new classification of the way babies are born if we focus on the bacteriological, immunological perspective. From that perspective, it's not an opinion, it's like that. It's obvious, it's like that. We have not to, I don't say to say more, I don't to anticipate. I just say this is the kind of question we need today. A new generation of epidemiological studies. The prevalence of dysregulation of the immune system in relation to the bacteriological environment at birth. In practice, it means new classification of birth, birth at home and birth elsewhere. I don't give the details, birth elsewhere, it can be with antibiotics, without antibiotics, it can be vaginal birth, but that's the first phase of the classification. A new way of thinking. It's a new way of thinking. New way of thinking means new questions. We don't need to go further than that. That's enough. Just question. Always the same. Let's don't go further than that. I'll mention another new situation, which is easy to explain. The point is to realize the importance of this point. It's one effect of modern reproductive medicine, and today we focus on childbirth. One effect of modern obstetrics, let's say, is to neutralize the laws of natural selection. Everybody knows about these laws, well studied since Darwin and others. Those old of billions of years. Today, suddenly, something absolutely new. We powerfully neutralize the laws of natural selection. It means, in particular, that the way a modern woman gives birth, can give birth, her way to get, or capacity to give birth, depends on the way she's giving birth depends on many other factors. No, let's say that yes, today there are the number. Let's say that in a simple way. I want to see it's a huge topic. The number of children per woman depends on many other factors than their capacity to give birth. Until recently, in villages, the woman who had 12 children was the one who could give birth easily. A woman who could not give birth, they were dying in childbirth. There was a terrible natural selection. This natural selection has been eliminated. And it's just not just the capacity to give birth, it's many other factors in the perinatal period. For example, we have to talk about the prevalence of bridge birth. We can wonder why in all human societies, from what we understand, in all human societies, the prevalence of bridge presentation at term was never above 3 or 4%. It was everywhere. It was the same. 97% babies at first. It was like that until recently. Everywhere in all societies, whatever the detail, it was like that. Today, we realized why it was never above 3 or 4%. Why? Particularly, thanks to a Norwegian study, a huge Norwegian study by the team. I cannot repeat his name. His name is SKG SKJ. SKJ, the first name, is a well-known epidemiologist, a Norwegian epidemiologist. They did an incredible, very important study. I think few people were interested in this study, but very important. Published in British Medical Journal, serious, in 2007. Yes, I was continuing SKJ. And then I cannot remember, it's Norwegian. It was published in 2000 and I think it's 6 or 8 in British Medical Journal. SKJ. You find that SKJ was the name. Yeah? So I can tell you, it's easy to find it. They looked at the Norwegian breast register between 1966 or 67, I don't know, until 2004, something like that. They looked at 2,200,000 births. Serious. And they wanted to know to which extent breech presentation at term is the effect under the effect of genetic factors. And they did something very clever. They looked in particular at people who had the same mother, but not the same father, and people who had the same father, but not the same mother. And it's how they could demonstrate that genetic factors are important in the transmission of the tendency to be born, not to be born head first, and the genetic material can be transmitted equally either by the father or the mother. So let's say that the current prevalence of breech birth head first is related to genetic factors. It's an advantage. To be born head first. Statistically speaking, everybody knows in all cultures than you that it's more dangerous to be born breech first. There was a natural selection. Today, we have neutralized this natural selection. When baby is breech presentation at term with the frequent use of cesarean section, roughly, I simplify, today it's more dangerous, not more dangerous to be breech birth than to be head first. What does it mean? It means that the prevalence of breech presentation at term will increase. It's a mathematical question. We can calculate. Every good mathematician can calculate, since it's equal in terms of safety to be born breech or head first, that there is no reason why it does not go above 3%. So we can anticipate, but that has to be calculated to evaluate. And in fact, in the Norwegian study, there was already differences between the end of 20th century and beginning of 21st century. There is an increased prevalence of breech presentation at term today. It's an example, among many others, of how we neutralize the laws of natural selection. I mentioned that because we are in Norway, but I can take many other examples. Why 74% of human beings are Rh positive and 16% Rh negative. Why always this difference? Because until recently, Rh negative human beings, statistically speaking, could not have the same number of healthy children than women Rh positive. Today, in the age of anti-Z agglutinin, we have neutralized the laws of natural selection. It's not, women Rh negative have the same number of healthy children than the others. So any mathematician, it's just a fact, it's like that, can calculate at which speed the prevalence of Rh negative human beings will increase. Effect of neutralized laws of natural selection. So this is something else to consider. We have to raise question. Modern obstetrics is neutralizing the laws of natural selection. For how long can we go on neutralizing the law of natural selection? So as we can say, we have so many questions to raise. It's what we are doing today. We are in the future. We raise questions. How many questions we have to raise? And raise questions about the survival of our species in absolutely new situation. We might think that after what we have said until now, there are many reasons for pessimism. There are reasons for pessimism. We have to just to realize what's happening, just to analyze the situation and to phrase the appropriate question. New question we are not thinking of because we think short term. Human beings have not been programmed to think long term, but suddenly it's essential to develop this capacity to think long term. But there are reasons for optimism. It seems that today, after tens of thousands of years of socialized birth, it seems that it's not impossible that we rediscover the basic need of laboring women. We have completely forgotten this basic need because of the dominant paradigm, the dominant cultural conditioning, the dominant way of thinking. It is that a woman has not the power to give birth by herself. Just look at the vocabulary associated with birth. A woman giving birth needs help. The word like helping, guiding, controlling, medical circles, it's labor management. You need some groups promoting natural childbirth. They say coaching. It's the same way of thinking. Natural childbirth, medical field, it's the same way of thinking. It's disempowering vocabulary, transmitting the dominant way of thinking that a woman cannot give birth without some cultural interferences. But suddenly, in spite of now thousands of years of culturally controlled childbirth, it's not impossible that we can rediscover the basic need of laboring women and create such situation in spite of deep-rooted cultural conditioning, create such situation that more women can give birth by themselves. But for that, there are several conditions. The first one, when we raise this question, is that we start from a new question, always the same story, starting from the right question. I know that there are many midwives in this room. They have studied textbook. In general, there are not many pages about birth physiology. But if there are some pages on this topic, they are always starting from the same question. Why are human births difficult? That's until now the basic question. And starting from that, they say from mechanical, morphological reasons, human births are difficult, full stop. They show you pictures of the size of the pelvis, pictures of the size of the brain of the baby. For mechanical reasons, they give details and so on. Mechanical reasons, human births are difficult, full stop. Don't need to say more. We cannot change the morphology of a woman when she's pregnant. No need to. Lack of interest for birth physiology. It's another matter. The point of departure is another question, an unusual question. why occasionally human births are easy and fast. We always have anecdotes. Even now, it still happens that some women who are not special for other regard, some women give birth easily, quickly, even though some women had not the time to realize they were in labor when they was born. In the past, they were teenagers hiding their pregnancy. One day they were going to the toilet with their baby. We all know that occasionally a human birth can be easy and fast. That should be the primary question. Why occasionally human births are easy and fast? If we start with this question, we realize that until now we have overestimated the importance of mechanical morphological factors. And today, if we realize that we have overestimated these factors, it means that there are other factors than probably the pure mechanical factors in general, a general rule. And it appears that today, in fact, at the same time, suddenly, with the development of neurophysiology, we can reach a radically new understanding of the birth process among humans. For that, we have to recall why humans are special. We already mentioned one reason why human beings are special. Special placental structure. IgG crossing the placenta. Human placenta is special, but another organ is very special, the brain. Human beings are unique. Encephalic quotient of 3 times higher than among other members of the chimpanzee family. Huge development of the neocortex. Human beings are special. When we talk about human nature, we will always focus on the huge development of this neocortex, the new brain, that only developed at such a degree among humans. Until now, when referring to the neocortex, we are presenting this part of the brain, the neocortex, as a tool and a service of physiological functions, providing information about space, time, facilitating communication. It was mostly, in our mind, a tool. Today, suddenly, it's different. Today, we understand that in some situations, the human neocortex can obscure, can inhibit, can make more difficult, the activity of the neocortex can make more difficult some human physiological function. The concept of neocortical inhibition is becoming a key, a new key to understanding human nature in general and some physical processes in particular. I have not the time to develop these points, all human physical functions that can be inhibited by neocortical activity. I just give an example that inspired studies published in scientific literature. If you drink a glass of wine, after that, your sense of smell, your olfaction, is more powerful. It's simple. What does it mean? You drink a glass of wine, alcohol, you reduce neocortical control. You facilitate a physical function, sense of smell. Midwives understand, for example, that as long as the human neocortex has not reached a certain degree of development, babies can express some archaic reflexes, primitive reflexes, that will be inhibited later on in life with development of neocortex. So today, the concept of neocortical inhibition is a key to understand what makes human beings special. And it's a new way, if you start from this concept, to understand the birth process. Today, we are in a position, if we start from the right question, why human birth can be easy, and if we are aware of the current phase in the history of neurophysiology, today we are in a position to understand the solution that nature found to make human birth possible and even potentially easy. Simple solution. The neocortical activity must be reduced, or we might say almost eliminated. This is a solution nature found to make human birth possible, reducing, eliminating to a certain extent neocortical control. And I'm sure that in this room, even in 2021, some of you can still understand this solution nature found to make human birth possible and even possibly easy. Some of you still know that when a woman can give birth easily, quickly, perhaps it happens to some of you, it's possible, when a woman can give birth easily, quickly, she does not need pharmacological assistance. There is a time when she's as if cutting herself off from her world, forgetting her plans, forgetting what she read, forgetting what she had been told, and so on and so on. She can behave in a way that usually would be unacceptable regarding a civilized woman. She can scream, she can swear, some signs that until now have not been noticed for obvious reasons. Some women in hard labor, non-medicated labor, who can perceive odors that nobody else can perceive. That's an important sign of reduced neocortical activity. And women giving birth easily, quickly, by themselves, who are on another planet, find themselves in unexpected postures, bizarre postures, mammalian, primitive postures. And add something else, which important probably, and it has been demonstrated by at least one study, one well-done study, is that women who give birth by themselves easily, quickly, without any medication, the days after, they have forgotten many details of what happened when they were giving birth, compared with those who gave birth by cesarean section, who remember many details. So that when you bring all that, there is no doubt that what makes human birth easily and possibly easy is a reduced neocortical control. That's what we have to understand today. If we understand that, it becomes easy to summarize what we need to know from a practical perspective. It means a laboring woman needs to feel protected against any stimulation of the neocortex. That is to say, language. Never talk to a woman in labor. Light, particularly modern lights. And to be fast, because it's time to finish and to conclude, to be fast, important to be protected against any attention-enhancing situation, not stimulate the attention. For example, observing a woman in labor. She's observing herself, neocortical stimulation, or being scared by something. So what can still be done about the role of other actors than mother and baby during the birth process is to satisfy for the woman labor to feel protected against all neocortical stimulation. The key word suddenly is protection. Forget helping, guiding, controlling, managing, coaching, and so on. The key word is protection against all stimulant, all inhibiting factors. I'll be fast because we talk about human beings. I summarize. But protecting against all inhibitory factors. It's a new way of thinking. It will take time. It seems that today the only reason for optimism is what we can learn from emerging and fast developing scientific disciplines, and in particular, neurophysiology. At the present time, it seems that the only way to create this kind of turning point. Today, it's as if we are at the end of the precipice. We have reached the limits, whatever the topic, we have reached the limits of the domination of nature. What can we do to take another direction? And the only way today is what can be offered by scientific disciplines such as neurophysiology. So here we are at the present time. Is it possible today, to a certain extent, to desocialize childbirth after thousands of years? That's another question. Apparently, to desocialize childbirth is utopian, but utopian does not mean impossible. Thank you.